Hi, Matt here from Three Skulls. Before I jump into the interview, I just wanted to quickly address something to people who are subscribers to this channel and are normally expecting to see content from Free League or the Year Zero engine, because that's generally what I tend to cover here, or solo content, because I do a little solo content as well. Um, Line of Inquiry isn't really any of those things, but what it is it's a system neutral set of tools and advice for creating and playing murder mysteries. And there's just a lot of interesting things going on with it. And I see a lot of applications in some of the Free League games, specifically the ones that are investigative focused, like Blade Runner or Vazen or Tales from the Loop, Things from the Flood. And I'm really excited to see how this can slot in alongside those existing games and provide a richer experience for the players, but also provide some really good tools and advice for the game master in terms of setting mysteries up. Because while Free League do address that and they do provide tools for creating mysteries, I think this will do it on a slightly different level almost. It's taking a similar approach to what Blade Runner is doing, in that it's taking Consulting Detective, the board game, as a bit of inspiration and looking at how to approach a mystery where the players themselves are building the case themselves almost from scratch and putting the pieces together and trying to solve a mystery. Specifically here in Line of Inquiry, it's about murders, but it can be expanded to do other types of investigative mysteries as well. So, that out of the way, I'm very excited about this project. I'm hoping you will be too. And let's jump over to Liam and our interview. Hey, Liam, thanks for joining me.
Good, bro. How you doing?
Yeah, not too shabby. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. It's good to be
Yeah,
yarning again. It's been a wee while.
it's been quite a while. Yeah, quite a long while.
Hmm.
I think since Mud and Blood stopped, right? So like
A
last
year?
November or so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
close to a year. Yeah.
around that. Yeah. Well, you're here to join me to talk about Line of Inquiry, and
Mm.
I guess before we jump into the specifics of it, for those who aren't kind of aware of who you are and aren't aware of Line of Inquiry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what Line of Inquiry is, how you came up with the idea, who it's targeting, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, kia ora, call Liam Takuingwa, or my name is Liam. I am what would you describe me as? A role play creator, I guess. I do a bit of it. I do a bit of a bunch of stuff. Um, Started off back in the day with Matt here on the Mud and Blood podcast. Did that for a number of years. uh, Branching out into sort of tabletop RPG creative bits and pieces here and there, having done a bunch of cultural consultation, sensitivity reading, a few creative bits and pieces, such as being a part of Dissident Whispers and the upcoming Hull Breach. And then, as of a year ago, took over Mud and Blood, turned it into Toa Tabletop, which is like an arching brand to focus more on not just podcasting, but also sort of again all those things covered, RPG creation and stuff like that. And Line of Inquiry is the first thing that I've led as a creative endeavor. So I've done a lot of work, sort of freelancing, contracting, things like that, commissions and stuff. Whereas this is the first time I've done my own thing. And the reason I did it is because actually Matt and I were both on a bit of an FKR kick a wee while ago, and that got me looking into FKR stuff and how you don't really need much rules to do things. And at the same time, I was getting into a board game called Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, and happened to read a blog post by Sean McCoy, the creator of Mothership, talking about that board game and about how not enough RPGs that are mystery games actually have you solve this mystery, right? Instead of just rolling dice to find out and following a trail of clues. And how like the OSR mindset of like everything is a problem as opposed to like a story, and how you should do that with a mystery, because you kind of, in Sherlock Holmes, you solve the mystery yourself, but it lacks role play. And every time me and my friends played it, we're like, man, I kind of wanted to role play that discussion instead of just reading an entry. So it was like, Sean McCoy had done that blog post years ago, And I was like, well, he's not going to do it. He's busy. He's doing Mothership. This massive game is blowing up. It's a great idea that I'm going to steal it. And so that's what I did. And, I'm a big fan of true crime stuff and all that sort of stuff. Everyone loves a murder mystery, right? So I was like, I'm gonna get in there and get together. And one of the things about doing Mud and Blood to a tabletop is we get lots of questions and queries and conversations from the community, and a lot of people struggle with how to put together mysteries. So I was like, well, let's give them some advice. I love a good mystery. It's my vibe. And murder mysteries especially are quite difficult for a lot of people. So I thought I'd wrap together like a zine that is a combination of a very rules like FKR style rule set for people who need one, a whole bunch of tools and advice on not just how to put together and run mysteries, but also how to conduct them. Like if you don't know how to investigate a murder, because I don't know about you, bro, but in my day job, I'm not a homicide detective. Right? Like how do you, I'm fortunate that my father-in-law was one, so I could talk to him a bit. But it was one of these things where it's like, give people advice on that, and then also include an actual mystery or two for them to sink their teeth in and get to enjoy it. So that's sort of who I am, and that's Line of Enquiry.
Yeah, cool. So Line of Enquiry is a set of tools and advice for running murder mysteries, and it's system agnostic, right? It's system neutral.
Yes, so there is a small system included, but which is just there. It's very rules light. It's very keyword FKRE. The actual tools themselves are specifically designed to be agnostic, because I play so many different games out there, and I don't want to invest time and funds and energy into making tools that I couldn't use with all those systems. So
you say there's a system attached. It's like the burnout mechanic, for example. So the systems specifically tying into the investigation rather than character sheets and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so kind of could complement if you wanted to run, for example, Call of Cthulhu or Delta Green and add a bit more structure around investigating a murder. You could just slot that in and add the systems in place to whatever you're using, right?
Absolutely. Or you could just dive in with everything that's just in Line of Enquiry and run and run an investigation. Characters, they don't really have stats, but they're keyword based and stuff.
Sure.
So it is very rules light, and that element of it, like the system for running your characters, isn't intrinsically attached to the tools.
Right.
So the tools and advice are agnostic.
Yeah.
The little system thing is take or leave. It's up to you how much of that you use, if any. Yeah.
Cool. And FKR-ish, it sounds like then, with just keywords, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's very easy to adapt then. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
All right. So I know having backed the Kickstarter myself, that you've posted an update, not just on the Kickstarter, but also on your blog, and I think on Twitter as well, about the tools for the GM. Can you give a quick summary about what those tools are for those who haven't heard of it yet? So just an overview of if you're running a murder mystery, and you're thinking about like what does Line of Enquiry provide for you as a GM to help run a murder mystery?
So I feel like I've been really clever in making sure the tools it provides work with both the players and the GM, and I'll get to that in a moment. But before I get to the big tools that are in there, it's got a ton of advice and guidance on how to structure the whole thing. The core, we've all heard like mystery advice, like the 3-clue rule. In the trail of breadcrumbs, put 3 clues, and that leads you out to nodes, and each node has another 3 clues. And that's great advice, but the problem is it's just shuffling you from scene to scene to scene. And that wasn't really what I wanted. So I focused on advice all around the GM effectively telling a story in reverse as the players discover the clues, right? And their story in reverse is the murder they're investigating. And then once you include that story that's filling out in reverse with the investigation that's filling the story out forward, you get your completed thing. And it gives you advice on that, right? With little tools in there for like, I'm going to include a serial killer generator. I'm going to include like tables you roll on if you need inspiration for evidence and means and motives and things. And then the big tools, which are for both the GM and the player, There's two specifically. You have the case file, which is that's a piece of paper that has like think of it almost like a character sheet. A good character sheet tells you what you need to make a character, right? This is like that before the mystery for the case, and it asks you like, who is the victim, what was the cause of death, what was this, and by filling it out, it'll prompt you to included evidence and things, right? Like if you fill this thing out thoroughly and everything that's on there is interlinked properly, you're going to be fine. Whereas if you've filled it out quickly and you've left holes in it, you know that those there are potentially going to catch you out. So it's a good sort of way to check your working, make sure that this is a solvable mystery. That's the thing a lot of GMs are a bit intimidated about, is putting together a mystery that they're worried won't hold up to investigation. Because once you give it to your players, who knows what directions they take? They might really focus on this thing over there or whatever. So you want to make sure that it makes sense. And if you fill out the case file, it'll make sense, right? And interestingly, the players start the game with the blank case file. So that prompts them on what to look for.
Yeah.
As they fill out and complete the case file, it'll start to make sense. Now, accompanying that, we have what's called the POI profiles, or person of interest profiles, or your perp sheet, right?
Yeah.
And that is for each of your suspects. And it's the same thing again. Who is the suspect? Do they have a means? Do they have a motive? Do they have an opportunity? Do they have an alibi? And if so, does it check out? And what other bits and pieces, what evidence points to those means, those motives, those opportunities, things like that. And again, as a GM, if you fill this out and you make sure that only one of your potential suspects completely matches the criteria to be the killer, and then you have a bunch of others that also have incomplete POI profiles, you now have a rogues gallery of NPCs, suspects and things that you link back to the case via the case file, right, to run your mystery. And again, like the case file, the players start with blank versions that they fill out as they go. And that prompts them to know what to look for. They need to, okay, right, this evidence points to this fella over here. So we need to look into, does he have a means? Does he have a motive? Does he have opportunity? What's his alibi? Does it check out? What evidence corroborates this information? And if you can fill that out and you can answer all those questions, you've got a case right there. There you go. You know what you're looking for, right? And because for a lot of people, that's the stuff they struggle with, is just knowing where to start, what to do. And it's just like coloring. It's coloring between the lines. That's all you got to do. If you color in between the lines, you're golden. Can't go wrong. And that's the big thing that I'm offering. I can't take complete credit for it, because again, in Sean McCoy's thing, he started it with like a case file, and I was like, that's great. It's really rules light, and it's very basic. I wanted to flesh it out more and make it more useful. And the goal is that the GM, if they have an idea in their head what happened, and they have a case file that they've filled out themselves in front of them, and a couple of these POI profiles, they should hopefully be able to improvise from there, and everything just gets out of their way. They've got the tools they need to play. It does require prep, obviously. But
you can't really improv a mystery, can you? Well, you can, but we'll go down that rabbit hole.
No, like I'm definitely, this is very much filling what I like in a mystery. I like to play to find out, and there has to at least be the illusion that there is something there to find. I'm not one of these people that likes this sort of, we all get together and decide what the mystery is as we go along, like a writer's room. It's not really my thing. If you're into that, that's cool. And one of the stretch goals that's unlocked is an optional tool that was written by a friend of mine, an optional tool that will allow you to potentially do that. So as you gather means, motive, and opportunity on people, and you roll a dice, and the more of those you have, the more likely they are to be the killer. So it is possible to play the game and not know which of your suspects is the killer, but
sounds like you might be able to play it in solo mode then as well.
I mean, potentially, if you wanted to. It's not something I've written, but if you're really keen, you
challenge accepted.
You'd have to be quite creative, but I mean, role players are creative, right? I'm sure someone will do it. Absolutely.
Cool. All right. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about doesn't necessarily just sound like murder based. You're looking at a crime, you're looking at suspects for the crime, and you're trying to build a profile to find out who done it, right? So
Basically,
it
yeah.
sounds like there's a lot of utility here for using it in investigations beyond just murders, possibly thefts or like any kind of like crime,
Yeah,
right?
intrigue and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Anything where you have a person or a group of people doing a wrong, right? That relies on the categorical trilogy or trinity they call it. It means mode of opportunity. That's what it all revolves
Yeah.
around, right? If you can do that, then you can do it. And my writing absolutely focuses on murder mysteries because I
Yeah.
think they're more
Yeah.
quite compelling. They're easy to get into,
Yeah.
but if, it could be a conspiracy. It could be a recreation of American politics. It could be whatever you're into. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
long as someone's committing a crime, you're good to go. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so I guess the other thing I was thinking about was I know it's system neutral, but from your perspective, what do you see? Which games do you see this other than of course using it for just to run a murder mystery with the provided system? If someone was to pair this with an existing role playing game, what's the sort of ideal in your head? What's the sort of ideal game to pair Line of Inquiry with? Is it something like Delta Green, or is Cosmic Horror a bit too vague in terms of what you're searching for?
Delta Green immediately jumps to mind as does Gumshoe. Anything
Yeah.
Gumshoe. Um,
Well, Delta Green's not. Fall Delta Green, you mean?
yeah, but I mean like Delta Green or Gumshoe.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Anything Gumshoe. Delta Green was obviously in my mind when I wrote it. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite games, as
Yeah.
it's called Cthulhu,
Same.
etc.
Mm.
But also, I mean, like the whole idea is, I mean, mysteries pop up in all games we play, right? You might
Yeah.
be playing Mutant, you might be playing Coriolis, whatever, and you come across a thing and you need to solve it, and it's like this could just be something you rock out for a couple of adventures.
Yeah.
Your players aren't now investigators, but they need to know, well, what are we doing here? Well, here's some
Yeah.
tools to help you guide your way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to revolve around just this thing. It's just it can be anything. I do think, in saying that, there is a caveat there. Obviously, the more fantastical you get, the harder it's going to be to do, because it does rely on, like the whole idea is I want you to find the clues and interpret the clues. If you're playing a game where someone can just cast a spell and have a sleep later and get that point of magic back, and their spell tells them who did it, then there's no amount of tools I'm going to add is going to make that interesting, right?
Yeah.
So it's really dependent on
Yeah.
your system, whatever. But and saying that, like the obvious ones is mundane things like
Yeah.
Delta Green, etc. At least with the players are mundane.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I'm in my mind, I was definitely thinking you could, even in Warhammer or something, you could be a road warden.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Warhammer springs to mind really because we've been playing in the Carrying Company campaign, and there's a lot of investigation going on in that, especially the second season, and also when we did our 40K season on Mud and Blood last year, I read a Warhammer crime novel, which was basically just an investigation. It was a detective on some planet trying to find a missing girl, and I really liked it. I remember after reading it thinking, well, how would I turn this into a role playing game scenario? And I was thinking like, well, I mean, it would have to be this like really in depth investigation with all the different clues and things. And this would be perfect, I think, for that as well, because this isn't somebody with psychic powers or anything. It's just like a beat cop detective guy who's getting in too deep. So yeah, I can see what you mean, and I definitely for like high fantasy, I think I can see that it would be a big struggle. Yeah, to kind of make it fit. But yeah, Warhammer's a good show. That's that's interesting. It's interesting. Cool. Right. In terms of what you're creating here, and in terms of support for a Line of Inquiry. Now it's part of Zine Quest, so it's quite a slim. We're not talking about like a 200-page A4 or letter sized book. We're talking about a zine. Do you have future plans for it to do like expansions or anything else, or are you planning to get this out and then kind of work on the next thing and maybe come back to it at some point in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. So initially the zine is, we don't know for sure until it's fully written, but I'm aiming about 48 pages, and that includes an adventure. and there is a stretch goal that's unlocked for another adventure that I'll release digitally after the ships. So just because I didn't want to delay things for the sake of a stretch goal. So there will be a digital adventure that ships. And the good thing is about those tools is it's actually really easy to put together mysteries, right? And I'm going to have like permission in the zine that anyone is allowed to make stuff for the game and upload it if they're interested in it, go for it. The more the better. Beyond that, I don't have a hell of a lot of plans. It really depends. Like if it's the sort of thing that it takes off and people are into it and they want more mysteries and people are asking for it, absolutely. If people happen to take to this really basic keyword system I put together and they really like to see more of that, absolutely. The big thing for me is this zine was actually a test case for other projects I have in mind, right? So I've been working on Fistful of Sixes for a long time.
Yeah.
There's a couple other projects I've got in my back pocket. There's one called U2, which is like a sort of decolonizational sort of text thing that I've got in mind and stuff like that. And these are all more ambitious projects. And because Toa Tabletop has been associated with a lot of products but hadn't released anything itself, I wanted to start with something that was easy to get out, quick to get out, and novel. You don't really see much of this particular thing out there with really good production quality. So even though it's a zine, got great editors, great layout, great art. And that's kind of my plan at the moment. That said, if there's a demand for it, if people want more adventures and stuff, they're easy enough to put together that you could, in theory, see this upload a bunch of, POI profiles, case files, and a synopsis, bang it into a PDF and upload it to drive through itch quite easily, if that's what people want.
Will that include things like, you mentioned there's going to be a lot of random tables to help generate things like motive and all the elements that go into it, but they would be very murder mystery based. So if people did similar tables for example, just to use my Warhammer 40k example, a missing person case, or even theme it to be like, this could be used for some grim, dark sci-fi setting. That would be okay as well, just for people to themselves to do it, or would that be something you'd want to do yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, people can go for it. I think we've seen in recent years in the look at Merkborg, look at Mothership, right?
Yeah.
The more open you are to community participation, the better your product ends up being. And I don't have any especially when this is something which I'm releasing just purely as like a look, I can actually release stuff and get it out to you. And so when I release my next thing, remember that, please. With that in mind, why it'd be silly of me to gatekeep the community. Absolutely. If people want to make stuff for it, go for it. If people want to make it, tweak it for their specific, if you're a huge fan of, I don't know, Simberi, whatever, go for it. If you want to tweak it and use it in anything really, just go for it. Have at it. Go for it.
All right. Thanks. I'll be putting links in the description for the Kickstarter, for the Toa Tabletop website, where there's social media links and a newsletter sign up for all the stuff you're working on. Liam, you've got a Patreon campaign as well. I'll put a link to that down there as well. And I'll also put links to Sean McCoy's blog post and the 3-clue rule from the Alexandrian, because those are interesting kind of background bits of information, I think, just in case people are interested. But that's us. So thank you very much, Liam. By the way, it is fully funded already. You've hit the 6,000 New Zealand dollars mark. For a target was 3,000 or 2,000?
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah. I fully thought I was going to be crawling towards that finish line the whole time and smashed it in 20 hours. And had all the stretch goals done in 5 days. I really, I didn't expect people to be interested, and they were. So I'm quite happy.
No, it's doing really well, and it's still got quite a long time. I think it's about 10 days or so. I didn't actually check it as of writing. Weeks. 15, so just over 2 weeks to go. This video will go out a week after we've recorded, so there'll be just over a week when this video goes live to go and back it. So yeah, very excited to see how well it does in the end, and really to see the final product. I'm actually planning on using it myself. I'm planning on running Blade Runner on the channel, and Blade Runner itself, it has tools for creating case files, but I've had a look at them, and there's not a lot of advice, and it's what you get as a player is what's called like a time tracker, which is just literally not much. It's not really a lot of tools in terms of like exactly what you're talking about. For me, the exciting bits are the advice for how to build it, because that's, for me, that's what's lacking in Blade Runner a little bit. And also the two sheets that you've mentioned, the kind of overview mystery tracker,
yeah,
the case file, yep, and the profiles for the POI,
yep.
profiles. So to me, that's kind of the magic sauce, really. And even though Blade Runner isn't about solving murders necessarily, it's about tracking somebody down. It's about going and finding people and what do they know and what are their links. And yeah, I was going to be using the starter set, but when this came out, very timely for me to think, actually, this would work quite nicely to try and put together. Like I was shitting myself about trying to come up with my own mystery, because there's just not a lot of advice out there. And even like you said with Alexandrian, with a 3-clue rule, there's still a lot of, it's still this like, it's not a lot of focused, I feel there's not a lot of focused discussion or advice on how to do it. So I'm planning on putting this into practice for that. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. And I might even try it solo with the kind of the stretch goal that you talked about with your friend who's providing these this way where you roll a dice to see who's, you've on the right track kind of thing. But anyway, so yeah, I'm very excited about it. Good luck, and thanks for joining me and having a chat about it.
No, thank you for having me. It's been good to come and have a yarn.
All right, cool. Take care.
Cool. Go up.